Shout out to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Hey guys, Spirit of the Lie here. In this explosive civ overview, we're going to be taking a look at the Jurchens. Jurchens are a cavalry and gunpowder civilization. I think a little better suited for team games than 1v1s personally, as I think they really hit their stride in late Castle Age to early Imperial. Initially, when they came out a few months ago, they were very much bottom tier, but have improved considerably after some buffs to multiple of their unique units. They're definitely a fun civ to play these days, revolving around particularly gunpowder and a few strong power spikes, so let's check them out. Starting with their team bonus, their gunpowder units have +2 line of sight. This affects 4 different units the Jurchens can make, as well as a number of others they can't, including hand cannoneers and several unique units. Oddly, this doesn't affect petards or demo ships, despite feeling like they might belong here. And keep in mind, many of these are already ranged units, with pretty good line of sight to begin with. It's far from a top tier team bonus, but at least establishes a gunpowder theme nice and early. Moving on to their civ bonuses, the first is for their economy, and is that meat from animals doesn't decay. This applies to their villagers and military units, where basically if the last thing to touch the animal is a Jurchen unit, decay is frozen in place, following the sacred rule of who touched it last, meaning if another civilization's villager touches the animal, it immediately starts to decay again. In terms of the value this gives, with different animals and a reasonable number of villagers, you typically get around 90-ish% of animals' meat, with around 10% rotting away. So Jurchens tend to get an extra 11 to 17 from herdables, 35 to 41 from large animals, and 19 more from deer. On an unfortunate start with 8 sheep, 2 boar, and not taking deer, that's a little over 150 extra food from animals. Whereas with 8 water buffalo, a rhino and elephant, as well as 4 deer taken, you get almost 300 more food than usual. So the effect has quite a range. If you split villagers between multiple animals, any other civ would receive an additional punishment in wasted food, while Jurchens don't. Keep in mind, this isn't just 150 to 300 more food in total, but animals are a fast food source, so you end up 50 to 100 food ahead of a generic civilization in food collected by feudal age, while simultaneously delaying farms. It's maybe a step down from Lithuanians' free 100 food, and even Tatar's longer-lasting herdables, but it's not that far behind. The only real downside is you can't effectively lame your opponent's chickens or deer, as of course anything you attack won't decay. So what can you do with that early food boost? Well, the next bonus helps direct you a bit, with mounted units and fire lancers attacking 20% faster, which includes stable units as well as the cavalry archer. To me, this makes them feel linked thematically with Ketons, and keep in mind while your cavalry archers don't have thumb ring, this more than offsets the attack boost from that tech, albeit without the accuracy boost. Either way, it makes scouts, step lancers, or fire lancers a solid default plan in any situation you're unsure of what to do, and early scouts also synergize nicely with your food bonus. Their next bonus is multi-part, first with siege engineers being available in Castle Age, as well as costing 75% less wood and researching twice as fast. Early siege engineers helps a few different units, with grenadiers increasing to 7 range to match crossbows, skirmishers, and mangonels, while +1 range on rocket carts and scorpions lets them outrange enemy mangonels and crossbows, which can be pretty handy. Plus, the battering ram also gets 20% more damage against buildings. Part 2 of the bonus is that the research time and wood cost of all siege and fortification techs are also boosted, meaning everything from heavy scorpion and heavy rocket cart to just about everything at the university, including masonry, fortified walls, the tower upgrades, and treadmill crane. I wouldn't consider Jurchens a tower rush civilization per se, but it's much easier to grab defensive techs once you have a university. I still think siege engineers is the most useful tech out of all the ones affected, as range is just so helpful for several units and also has some extra emphasis from being available in age early. And finally, rounding out their bonuses, Jurchen military units take just half friendly fire. That does include damage from overzealous allied onagers, but also importantly your own grenadiers and rocket carts. Unfortunately, there's no protection for your allies' units to your errant shots, but on top of the fact that your secondary explosions from a unique tech don't deal friendly fire, it means you're able to be fairly indiscriminate with how you use your gunpowder in the late game. So that's their bonuses, setting you up for a decent early eco into cavalry with a mind to eventually switch into, or at least incorporate, gunpowder units. The thing that makes Jurchens really fun, but also somewhat complicated to use, is not necessarily their bonuses, but their large variety of regional and novel units. So let's spotlight those unique units now, starting with the Iron Pagoda. As always, I've already deep dived this unit for those of you who want a bit more detail, but for a quick overview, you can basically think of this as the Jurchens knight line, which they otherwise lack at the stable. Compared to a knight head-to-head, it is a little more tilted toward food than gold, which works in their favor, considering they're a bit of a later Castle Age unit for the most part, and actually have slightly better stats as well. Compared to your other cavalry options, it has by far the highest HP, attack, and pierce armor, while then naturally being the slowest and most expensive. They also have a unique effect of blocking one incoming melee attack with a recharge on that ability. This critically makes them the game's first anti-demo ship cavalry unit, which I've long found to be a greatly underexplored niche in the game. Outside of that situation, they're basically a slightly stronger knight, able to beat knights head-to-head, and their higher pierce armor plus HP means they're unusually good at tanking crossbows in Castle Age. On the flip side, they're weak to many of the same things, and while they do hold up a bit better as they negate the first incoming attack, a massive pikemen are still very cost-effective in the long run, partly because the charge only helps against one of them. While they're basically a knight plus in Castle Age, they still have the extra problem of requiring castles, and in Imperial Age also end up being more on the level of a good cavalier rather than keeping pace with paladins. Basically, the devs are offering you top-tier knights and cavaliers at the castle to augment your otherwise pretty streamlined stable. Their other unique unit is the Grenadier at the archery range. These are available in Castle Age, and are sort of a mix of a hand cannoneer and a mangonel. They're somewhat fragile with low HP and armor, but have a hidden +9 bonus against infantry, as well as a bit against buildings, and deal a small area damage, kind of like a mini onager. They start off in Castle Age as pretty much anti-infantry and situationally anti-archer given their area damage, though have minimum range and take anti-archer bonus damage, so they can struggle against cavalry and skirmishers. When they really shine though is in Imperial Age after the unique tech Thunderclap bombs, which adds extra secondary explosions to every shot. If you can get units to stand in or walk through those delayed secondary explosions, that can easily double or triple the amount of damage you're dealing, and at that point, mass grenadiers with even a bit of protection in front can counter just about anything in range. They're also pretty good against buildings, though be careful with their friendly fire if you're combining them with melee units, and this is actually a case where step lancers are extra nice as they stand far enough away to not take that damage. Other than that, Grenadiers are mostly your hand cannon alternative, and if you generally treat them like hand cannoneers plus area damage, you'll find good uses for them. I have to say, this is probably their most fun unit to use. Jumping back to the castle though, let's take a look now at their unique techs. The first is Fortified Bastions, which adds 500 HP per minute of repairs to all your defensive buildings, including castles, town centers, walls, gates, and towers. For a bit of perspective, villagers repair 750 HP for the first one repairing, and 375 HP for each one after. So this is less than one villager worth, but the healing is completely free, saving you potentially a ton of stone in particular, and is also just on top of any usual repairing you do. In comparison, a single trebuchet without any upgrades does almost 2600 damage per minute to a castle, so it certainly doesn't make you immune to trebuchets, but combined with cheaper and faster to research defensive techs at the university, as well as hoardings, this all adds up. Where it's especially impactful is for town centers taking shots from mangonels, where it repairs 2/3 of incoming damage, saving a ton of wood in the process. It's a cheap tech and helps in a lot of situations, so it's worth considering once your first castle is up. Their other unique tech, as we've seen, is Thunderclap bombs, which is actually even better than we've had a chance to showcase so far. This is more expensive, but has two different effects. The first is it makes several of your units explode when defeated, dealing damage to adjacent enemies, though the damage isn't that crazy, and also falls off pretty quickly with distance, but can at least thin out a group of cavalry taking down your grenadiers or rocket carts. The other effect are those secondary explosions we saw for the Grenadier already, which remember don't deal friendly fire, and has a similar dramatic effect on all three units it impacts. The Grenadier, as already mentioned, can start to reliably do 2 to 3 times their usual damage against a variety of targets, while Jurchen Lochuans at the dock become by far the best among their peers against land units. And don't overlook their rocket carts with this tech either, which can also deal often double their damage to targets that stand or walk through the extra explosions, putting them ahead of even siege onagers in damage per volley, while being significantly better against buildings as well. Again, the tech is 1500 resources, but if you already have a mass of any of these 3 units, this unique tech will give you a pretty dramatic improvement in DPS, consistently more than doubling all of their firepower. So that's the Jurchens castle, and now let's move on and take a look at their wider tech tree, starting with the archers. The archer line itself is a bit underwhelming without Arbalester or any useful bonus, but you have the Grenadier as an early hand cannon replacement and the faster attacking cavalry archer. The Grenadier is probably the most common of these units to see in practice, though fully upgraded skirmishers are useful to have, and I'll give it a B overall. Next up for infantry, Jurchens are unique for lacking the long swordsman entirely, though for some strange reason as a bit of a noob trap, then get gambesons for their men-at-arms. On the plus side, the Fire Lancers attack 20% faster, and you have Halberdier, so you do have anti-cavalry options. It's just the anti-shock infantry counter in your swordsman line you're missing. As a whole, it's just a B- for me, albeit with a decent men-at-arms opening and Fire Lancers in Castle Age. As for their cavalry, it's hard to take too much away from missing knights when they have a slightly better version of those at the castle, and both your scout line and step lancers attack faster, with all other upgrades you'd be looking for. Their early food bonus synergy with scouts might even be enough to make it an A-, and I often lead toward cavalry as the backbone of whatever army I'm making with Jurchens, even if it's just the light cavalry line as a meat shield for their gunpowder. Moving on to Siege, not only is it a very open tech tree, but remember you have Siege Engineers in age early at a significant discount, faster research and discounted unit upgrades, plus your rocket carts and bombard cannons deal half friendly fire. With Thunderclap bombs, your rocket carts are then on par with the best Siege onagers in terms of raw damage, albeit it is a little expensive to get there. For being potentially above average in Castle Age, plus having an incredibly high ceiling on some of their late game units, it has to be at least an A-, and I'm even going to say it's an A. There are some very good siege bonuses and unique techs out there, but I would put Jurchens in that top tier conversation. Next up for the Navy, you have a small boost to your food income, but otherwise there isn't anything relevant going on. I don't think that moves the needle beyond a C+ early, and late game you're then missing fast fires and shipwright, so they're certainly not top tier. I do prefer the regional Lo Chuan to the canny galleon line, particularly after Thunderclap bombs, and as long as you're happy spamming galleons and Lo Chuans to bombard the shore, it's a solid B+ late for a B- overall. Taking a quick look at the monks, you're missing Redemption as the big one along with Heresy and Faith. They're not exactly a monk's if, and Redemption would have been nice against Siege in particular, but it's also not the worst monastery either, and I think it's worth a C+. Next up for defenses, not only is it a pretty open university, but all of this is much better than it appears, since anything fortification related is researched in half the usual time and has its wood cost cut dramatically. Throw in the fact you have your castles, town centers, and other defenses self-repair, and this is low-key one of the best defensive civilizations in the game. It may not be quite as in your face as Byzantines, but I'd say it's at least an A. Jurchens can really turtle up with the best of them. As for their trash units, that is the skirmisher, spear, and scout lines, it's actually pretty good, just missing the last infantry armor. The Hussars attacking 20% faster is very nice for getting even more value out of those. Plus, self-healing defenses really works its magic in those long grinding games. I'd say it's a B+, but if you really love the Hussar, you could easily argue it into the A range. Ideally though, Jurchens have trade in the late game, letting them spam gunpowder units or their higher tier cavalry, where trash units can then just be a bit of filler. While they have a decent early economy and scout rush, something nice about Jurchens is you don't really have to close the game early, and if you can just hold on and keep things competitive, they can often make up some ground in Castle Age. Whether it be step lancers, grenadiers, iron pagodas, rocket carts with early siege engineers, or even just fully upgraded crossbows or faster firing cavalry archers, you have a lot of options, even if they don't all carry through as well into Imperial Age. My personal leaning is toward their Step Lancer or Grenadiers as core units, and part of that is I just find those fun to play with. But any combo of one cavalry, one archery range, and one siege unit tend to be pretty well rounded, and within that vague template there are several combinations that work. Obviously, this is also the most visually dazzling civilization in the late game, with their multitude of explosive units. And if that sort of light show appeals to you, you should stop by my new online store, Spirit of the Long Bien Pa, which is Chinese for dragon fireworks. Business is booming, literally and figuratively, thanks to a great website I made with this video's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting or managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create a great-looking website, engage with your audience, and then sell anything from products to content to time, all in one place. Using either their pre-made templates or Squarespace's AI-enhanced website builder, you can create a fully customized website to suit your needs. It's perfect for building an online presence for a physical business or starting an online store using their built-in tools for inventory and shipping, with plenty of analytics to give you insight about your website's traffic and sales. Go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/spirit of the law to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. So that's a look at the Jurchens. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.